Our next speaker is not physically here with us, and thankfully, there we go. Technology makes it worth the while. Vickie, how are you? Can you hear
I'm
me?
well.
How are you
I'm
doing,
well.
Vickie?
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us. So for those who are meeting you for the very first time, Vickie is the general manager, Microsoft Airband. Now, Microsoft Airband, in a nutshell, they are focusing on taking or providing internet services to very remote areas, hotspots as well. So areas that infrastructure might not be able to physically get there. And we all know how important and sentimental Kendall is about his relationship with Microsoft. So it's great to have you, Vickie.
It's great to be here.
All right.
It's a pleasure to join you virtually.
Over to you.
Thank you. Again, it's a pleasure to join you all today virtually for Tizeti's NextGen 2.0 conference. Although I'm remote, I can literally feel the energy in the room, and you all have an amazing list and cast of speakers speaking about what was really a seminal issue in our society today. As it was mentioned, we are pleased to call Tizeti a Microsoft Airband partner as we work to extend internet access to all and connect the unconnected. I have slides, and so I'm not sure if they're running, but if they are running, I'd like to go to the next slide, please. So Microsoft's mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. We live out this mission through work and programs that drive inclusive economic opportunity, protect fundamental rights, and earn the public's trust. Internet connectivity and access to digital services are now an absolute necessity and a fundamental right. People want and expect anywhere, anytime high-speed connectivity, and my team's work to expand internet access to unserved and underserved communities directly aligns with Microsoft's core mission. I'm pleased to share that to date, Airband partnerships have in fact expanded internet access to more than 40 million people around the world today. Globally, there is broad consensus that closing the digital divide, that is the gap between those connected to the digital world and those who are not connected, requires moving beyond simply extending internet access to address barriers such as adoption. After all, I think we can all agree that internet access is not an endpoint, but rather a necessary precondition for productive impact and transformative outcomes. We at Microsoft have therefore expanded our work to go beyond increasing internet access to driving what we call digital equity, which means expanding access to affordable internet services, affordable devices, and the necessary skills to use connectivity meaningfully. And all of this serves as a foundation for empowerment and driving digital transformation across the world. Our work with partners like Tizeti is proving this out as we are driving transformation in the areas of healthcare, education, business enablement, and agriculture. Next slide, please. The reality, however, is that we face a huge challenge in seeking to connect the unconnected. According to the most recent International Telecommunications Union's Facts and Figures report, approximately 4.9 billion people use the internet in 2021. It sounds like a big number, and this does represent an increase from 17% from 2020, undoubtedly spurred by the global pandemic, which is, we know, has clarified now more than ever that internet connectivity is truly a necessity in today's digital world. The reality, however, is that a staggering 2.9 billion people, that is more than 1/3 of the world, remain offline, with 96% of those people living in developing countries. This reality is further exacerbated by the fact that 770 million people around the world also lack access to electricity, which of course is necessary for any internet infrastructure. This gap, the global digital divide, is an imperative that we at Microsoft must address both from a mission perspective, but also a business imperative. Internet access, there is no cloud access. If we could please advance to the next slide. So how are we doing this work? Partnerships are central to the Airband model as we are convening and bringing together others with the view to providing a holistic program that uniquely addresses the challenges of the digital divide. Our work with internet service providers like Tizeti is core to the program as we are partnering to expand and accelerate connectivity in unserved and underserved communities. These partnerships provide optional financial co-investment with revenue share, which is then recycled for new and existing partnerships, as well as grant funding where it's appropriate. We are also partnering across the company with other teams, as well as other external community and commercial entities, public sector organizations, and many others to ensure that as our partners are building these networks, that they are layering digitally transformative solutions on top. And they're doing this to improve productivity and livelihood, and most importantly, drive sustainable development. We believe in the power of reliable, high-speed internet to transform communities and lives, especially again in the areas of healthcare, agriculture, education, and economic development. Now, as we're doing this work, we are focusing on sustainability to drive impact and to be sustainable. To go back to the person who preceded me in his presentation, you have to get access to finance and banking. So as part of our work, we are partnering with government, intergovernment organizations, development banks, and other financing entities to facilitate access to capital so that Airband partners can scale their work across the world. Next slide, please. So what does this work look like in Africa? We all know that the African continent is emerging as one of the single most important markets in the world. Africa, in fact, is home to 7 of the 10 fastest growing cities and 6 of the 10 fastest growing national economies. Currently, the combined GDP of Africa is $2.9 trillion, and total consumer spending was around $3.6 billion in 2019. This figure is expected to reach 5.3 trillion by 2030, which is only a few years away. The promise of economic opportunities in Africa is real, particularly with the growth of digital technology and related innovation contributing to significant development. As noted in the African Union's digital transformation strategy, the continent's youthful population also creates a major opportunity to grow in this massive era of digitization. Today, there are more than 1.3 billion people in Africa, and the population is projected to grow to 1.7 billion in 2030, to 2.1 billion by 2040, and then to 2.5 billion by 2050. This rate of growth is staggering, especially when you consider the fact that Africa is already the youngest continent on the planet, with a median age of 19 and around 60% of the population under the age of 25. A lot of promise. The future is in our youth. Next slide, please. Now, while there is a lot of promise, the reality is that Africa is still the least connected region in the world, with only 33% internet penetration on the continent and nearly 300 million Africans living more than 50 kilometers away from internet infrastructure. This makes internet access either inaccessible or just simply too expensive. Now, we know that there is a high rate of mobile internet users in Africa. In fact, more than 590 million mobile internet users on the continent. However, only 7.7% of the households had a computer in 2019. This is a challenge as we are using connectivity in more meaningful ways. Another challenge that we're facing is the lack of access to quality education and digital skilling. The literacy rate for people over 15 years of age is 64%. And this is lower than the global average of 86%. We are also having to combat and deal with the issues around the unemployment rates, which remain high with an average of 15% across the continent. Again, we all come back to COVID. The pandemic has actually exacerbated these growing social and economic disparities. particularly for traditionally marginalized communities, including racial and ethnic minorities, women and girls, and people with disabilities. This growing digital divide poses a serious threat to Africa's ability to drive inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Without urgent the digital divide will increase, putting at risk acceleration and implementation of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, with the prospect of the growing African population that we were just talking about being left behind without equitable access to the social and economic benefits of a global digital economy. Make no mistake, it is time for urgent action. The good news is that there is strong momentum to act across government, industry, civil society, and international organizations. But the private sector must also step up with strong, coordinated, and sustained investment. Next slide, please. So at Microsoft, we're currently working in more than a dozen countries across Africa, Latin America, and Asia. And we're doing this work with government partners like the United States Agency for International Development, also known as USAID, and the US Trade and Development Agency, but also private sector partners like Unilever. On the continent of Africa alone, we have active projects that have expanded internet access to more than 9 million people, and we are just getting started. I want to spend a bit more time to give you a better idea of how Airband thinks about partnerships and what our projects look like by highlighting a few of our signature projects globally. And I would be remiss not to start with Tizeti. Next slide, please. At the end of last year, we launched a partnership with Tizeti to support their ambitious expansion in Nigeria. The network deployment is focused on Oyo State, and they are using fiber-fed solar-powered towers across the region. So doing this work in a way that's smart for the environment and business smart. And they're doing this all with the goal of providing next generation connectivity to households and small enterprise customers. Tizeti is deploying a hybrid network, which we believe is a best practice in this space, while also leaning into their strengths in community engagement and market experience. Working with the company, Microsoft, Tizeti is also using our digital skilling content in regionally relevant ways, which then in turn supports nationwide skills initiative and also has the benefit of expanding Tizeti's customer base. So we're really excited about Tizeti and the work they will continue to drive, not just in Nigeria and Ghana, but I would say the entire continent, perhaps the world. Next slide, please. So as we think about many others in this space that are doing this work, we believe that a distinguishing feature of the Microsoft Airband initiative's value proposition is depth of execution and impact at the local level, particularly for traditionally marginalized groups and communities. We're not measuring ourselves against what others are doing in this space from a dollars perspective. Instead, our objective is to drive impactful programming that empowers communities to drive systemic, sustainable change, working from the ground up. I'm particularly proud of our work with USAID and what was formerly known as the Women's Global Development and Prosperity Initiative as a woman to tackle the gender digital divide by bringing meaningful connectivity to more women in remote areas of the world. As we are doing this work, we're seeing women empowered and communities being uplifted as a result of these deep collaborations. Next slide, please. Another great example of, I believe, of this approach is our work in Kenya, where we're partnering with Unilever and USAID to address an issue that's near and dear to my heart, gender inequity. In Africa, only 20% of women use the internet compared to 37% of men. Airband partner Mwingo is utilizing dukas, and dukas are small general community stores in Kenya to close the gender digital and economic divide. Through our work with Unilever and Mwingo, they are providing Wi-Fi service that supports these local shopkeepers by increasing access to financial services, which is critical in today's market, and including affordable credit and integration into Unilever's value chains and markets. This, in my mind, sets up a nice model for going about this work that can be replicated across the continent. Skill building is another significant focus of the work as Unilever's value chain, as the Duca owners, are able to use a digital platform that enables business skills training. The outcome of these efforts is women-owned shops being empowered to use the power of data to improve business efficiencies, setting off a flywheel effect of economic development within a broader community. Now, the next example that I may share will be the last example that I share, may seem a little bit out of place as it's a project in Guatemala. I'm sharing it, however, to showcase the importance of Airband's global portfolio, and more importantly, the importance of our partner network when working with similar barriers and innovative solutions for combating the digital divide. Next slide, please. So as we work to empower marginalized communities through energy and broadband access, we have found that we can also address related societal challenges such as immigration. In Guatemala, 1.5 million people lack access to energy, the majority living in rural and remote communities. Lack of access to electricity and information services limits economic and educational opportunities, and women are disproportionately impacted. This combined lack of opportunity is a key driver of immigration from the region. Through Airband, our partner is New Sun Road is working with USA to deploy 20 internet-enabled solar-powered digital community centers. The centers serve as technological hubs for women in unelectrified communities to access clean energy, broadband, as well as skills, mentorship, and entrepreneurial opportunities. And we're excited about replicating this work at scale on the continent of Africa. So in closing, I want to leave you with the thought that our position that our work is really about helping to increase access to internet as a foundation for people and communities to realize their potential and ultimately deliver on key benefits achieved through internet connectivity and technology. I really thank you for the opportunity to participate in a conference, and I hope to do it in person next year, and looking forward until that time to connecting. Thank you so much.
Hello, Vickie. Hi, Vickie. Okay, I'm looking at, where do I look? Do I look into this camera? Can she see me? Hi, Vickie. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, thank you so much for that great presentation. It's customary for, no, put Vickie back on, please. Can she hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. So it's customary that, you know, we give you a name, because a little bird told me you've not been to Nigeria.
I've not.
We need to remedy that. So are you ready for your new name?
I am ready for my new name.
All right, so repeat after me. My new name is?
My new name is?
Vickie.
Vickie.
Oluwakemi.
Olakemi.
A bit louder.
A bit louder.
Oluwakemi.
Olakemi.
Robinson.
Robinson. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
So Oluwakemi means God maybe protects to you, God taking care of you, basically. So till we see you next year at 3.0, be safe.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for blessing me with that name.
She said something. What did you say?
I said, thank you for my new name. It's a blessing and I cherish it.
You're most welcome. Just bring chocolates when you're coming.
Easy.
All right, thank you so much. And that was the general manager of Microsoft Airband.